Down the right field line, pretty well hit. LaVarn way is the right way here tonight.
Yogi Berra said it's 90% mental, the other half is physical. My name is Ryan LaVarnway, Major League catcher and minor league grinder, and I've spent the last 15 years playing professional baseball while evolving my mindset. I'm fascinated by optimizing that 90%. In this show, I'll talk to elite athletes and mindset coaches about what makes them tick and how they've overcome obstacles in their own careers on the way to finding success. This is Finding the Way. Hey guys, this is Ryan LaVarnway, and I'm so excited to be joined by Nick Rickles. If you don't know who Nick Rickles is, he was an all-state baseball player in Florida in high school, two-time Division I All-American baseball player at Stetson University for the Hatters, was drafted by the Oakland A's, played 10 years professionally with the A's, the Nationals, and the Phillies organizations, and then was my teammate multiple times playing for Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic and in the Olympics. Nick, so happy to be doing this with you today, man.
Ryan, I'm really excited to be a part of this, man. You've been around so much. You met so many people. I'm very honored that you're having me on the podcast.
Oh, of course. So actually, the motivation for me wanting to have you on was I saw a post that you had today where you commented on a little kid who had been cut from his team and he had payback and had a great game against that coach or that team. You were cut from your middle school team 2 years in a row and then went on to do all those cool things that I just said about you. Tell me, what was the turnaround?
For me, a lot of it had to do with my dad pushing me in the right direction. I wouldn't say I was ever really, a good baseball player when I was young. I kind of just did it because, I lived in Florida. It was always outdoor sports for me. I did the baseball, football platoon. Honestly, I thought I was better at football growing up, but middle school team didn't have a football team. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go try out for baseball. I had done the travel ball thing forever. A lot of the kids on my team were on my travel ball team. So I was super excited to try out my sixth grade year. Went there, had a good tryout. I thought I did well. Obviously in Florida, there's a ton of competition because it is year-round baseball. And my first year, I got cut. And I remember thinking, I was like, you know what? I'll work my butt off. I'll play travel ball. My dad was always pretty hard on me as a kid, but this was one of the few moments or the first moments I can remember where he was a little softer. He wasn't disappointed by any means. He's like, look, this is just, we'll work, we'll get better. We'll join a different travel team and get ready. And then unfortunately the same result the next year. And I was questioning if baseball was for me, if it was, it was time to switch to football. And I don't even know. I think at 10 years old, that's a pretty harsh thing to think of right away. But my family being a huge support system and my dad, I remember we used to fight because he used to call me an athlete student instead of a student athlete, which I know Ivy Leaguers aren't keen on that thought, but it's something that I would do batting cages before homework. I would go running before homework and my eighth grade year, I ended up making the team. And then varsity, my freshman year of high school was a huge jump for me. And I know you talk about motivation and it's crazy at 32 years old. I can still remember my coach Schramm that cut me twice. So it was pretty motivational throughout the baseball years.
So what was it? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that, right? They play multiple sports. They don't really want to choose one early. They don't want to have to specify and just only do one sport. But then maybe they feel like they're falling behind. What was it that turned it around where you went from getting cut to being on the varsity team your freshman year?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, I'm going to mention my dad a lot throughout this. Obviously, my mom played a huge part too. But my dad was very, very, very sports driven. For me, once we decided once I was cut the second time, we basically were like, look, if baseball is what you love, we are going to focus all of our time on that. So I hung up my football cleats early. Not that I would have been a Tom Brady by any means. But we hung up the football cleats and just basically dedicated all my free time to baseball. Anybody that I went to high school with, even, my early years of college can atone to the fact that I didn't drink, I didn't party. I kept up my schoolwork. I did the right things. My dad always said good things happen to good people. So I worked extremely hard solely on baseball. And yeah, there's ups and downs. You're not always going to succeed right when you want to. You have to battle adversity in any aspect of life. But for me, I took it. I've always been competitive. It could be who finishes their dinner first with my brother. It's anything. So I took it as more of a challenge to, okay, you cut me twice. This is my last year to make the team with all of my friends who are going to go to or high school a lot the same place I was. And honestly, I hate to use the word embarrassed, but I was embarrassed for 2 years, not making the team. I was watching my friends play, which I felt left out. As long as you played, there's team functions. Even at that age, there's team parties. You're picking numbers. It's just, I was embarrassed and sad. And I think that was a lot, finding out how to not dwell down into that negativity. And like I said, family support is huge. And finding a way to turn that out into work ethic was huge for me.
So you took a negative experience and you used it to fuel you and to motivate you, and it seems like it still motivates you.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, you were talking about battling injuries and getting drafted. I know that, it's great to be a 2-time All-American. It's awesome to go Division I, but I've always been the guy where I'm like, okay, what's next? Once the accomplishment is accomplished, I don't like feeling satisfied in the moment. I'm like, okay, you can always better yourself somehow. So for me, I got drafted a little later than I wanted. So immediately I was like, all right, this is back to, I got cut before. Now getting drafted in general is amazing. I'm very blessed and thankful to do it, but everybody has expectations for themselves, whether it's realistic or not. And I think that was the first time in my life you're going to a level where everybody is as good or better than you, In college, regardless of where you go, there's always, I would say, 3 or 4 guys that stand out that you're like, all right, that guy is the guy. He's the high scholarship guy. He's going to go pro. And then when you get drafted, the 10 guys after you, the 10 guys before you, whatever it may be, are all within that same, outside of maybe the first couple rounds, same, realm of athleticism and talent. And it kind of checked me back a little bit and reminded me that, okay, you got drafted. Now it's time to find that motivation again and continue it throughout the years. And I think the average playing career, I did a project I went back to college to get my degree, and it was like 2% get drafted in general. And then the average playing career, even in the minor leagues, is under 2 years.
Wow.
So to make it, for as long as you've done, you're the exception to the rule. But even doing it for the 9 or 10 years that I did, it was, I feel lucky, obviously, at this point.
It's so, yeah, what I'm hearing from you is that you like to have a chip on your shoulder and keep that underdog mentality. And right. If you can do that, you stay hungry. You are the hunter. You're not the hunted. And I can relate to that a lot in my career, whereas there have been times where I feel like I deserve something, and as soon as I feel like I deserve it, it comes back and bites me, and I need to stay with the chip on my shoulder. I need to stay being the hunter and the underdog mentality that you're describing.
I remember you specifically in the WBC. That was a very big theme in what we were doing with Team Israel, what you were looked at yourself in the mirror, the way you led the team. I think I'm a big believer in leading by example. And anybody can say whatever they want, but until you are the leader or you do lead what you preach, it's tough to buy into anybody. And I will say at this point in my life, not just career, of all the people I played with this day, I talk about the way you speak, the example that you set. Everyone talks about chasing dreams. That's something that it's banged into your head when you're a child. I'm going to be a big leaguer. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, there's sacrifices you have to make through life. There is, I read an article about you the other day. I know this is more of a collective conversation, but an article about wasting your Ivy League education. And, people ask me specifically, and you can speak to yourself about this, the number one thing baseball teaches you. They're like, you played for 10 years. You really didn't start your real life until you were 32, all this job for me, I'm speaking of. And it teaches you 2 things, in my opinion. One, you learn how to fail, which in life in general is a huge, huge advantage once you learn how to fail. And 2, you only worry about things you can control. So in baseball, the first couple of years, I was stuck on looking at all of the levels ahead of me. I literally was in rookie ball and I was watching Steven Vogt in the big leagues, thinking that he was my competition. You know what I'm saying? You get drafted and you're like, oh, he went over 4 today. Yes. Or like, oh, the guy in AAA is potentially getting moved up. There's going to be a spot. And you just got drafted yesterday,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I feel like you learn over life that baseball can teach you. And no offense to any collegiate education there is, I'm a huge believer in people skills. Obviously, education based on the profession, but I mean, you've met people probably from every country in the world or close to it. You've met people that speak 7 different languages, and you've been to multiple countries. It's stuff that without baseball, I don't think I would have the opportunity to have done.
Yeah. Well, so you talk about what you observed in my leadership style when we played for the WBC. You were a leader on this team as well, and going to the Olympics. I don't think there's only one leader on a team. I think good teams have multiple leaders, and especially for the qualifiers, the Olympic qualifiers, you really took a leading role. Especially, we had a coach that didn't have a lot of experience coaching professional guys, so we needed that team leadership. What would you say is your leadership style?
So for me, like I was kind of saying to you before, I really, really enjoy the leading by example. The way I was raised, I watched how my parents parented me. It's now transitioned into how I parent my children. It's just one of those things where I think they always say someone's always watching. I mean, I remember that when I got drafted, every coach always said that. And to be honest with you, at a younger age, I didn't buy into it. And I think a lot of them say it because there's people that need instant gratification. So if you think someone's paying attention to you, you think someone's watching you always feel like you're gratified by their approval. For me, I almost enjoy if I can affect one person, and I know it's kind of like an extreme thought, but let's say when I was coaching or when I was playing or Team Israel, one of the younger guys from Israel, anything like that. If one person sees me do one thing that they wouldn't have done in a positive way, and now they decide to do that forever, the trickle-down effect of that one person, now someone else sees it. So I don't like making achievements are achievements, but I enjoy the thought of, okay, example here, now it just falls down all the way through. You know what I'm saying? It's not, I don't need 10,000 people in a room to be like, I'm going to do what he does. Just do one.
You be the first domino that sets up a chain of positive events.
Correct.
I love that. I'm thinking back to a conversation. I don't know if you even remember this. 2017, you and I were in Korea, and we were at the JW Marriott where the team was staying for the hotel, and we were at breakfast, and you were debating whether you wanted to continue playing professionally or not.
Right.
And you said something to me that it kind of changed my life and my career and my perspective, and I don't know if I've ever thanked you for it, but you said, I decided I'm going to keep playing today because I've been watching how much fun you were having playing baseball, and it makes me love baseball more.
Yeah, I mean, I get goosebumps listening to you say that. It's funny because I had never you had been around baseball drafted wise professionally before I got drafted, right? So, and our paths never crossed. It seems if you look back on it, you were with a ton of organizations, but there's a lot of organizations that we missed each other by 2 years, a year here and there, or whatever. And, I never got the chance to play with you. And when I did play with you, it's funny. And I'm sure you've heard this over and over again because people probably always ask you, hey, when are you going to coach? For you, when are you going to coach? You're a catcher. You're going to be a manager one day, blah, blah, blah. I think you should play as long as you want to play and you can compete, right? And I remember thinking in 17, I was like, maybe he's on the back end of his career because I didn't know you at that point. You had already played baseball. I don't know what year you got drafted. I'm betting you were already around for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's probably in the back end. He's looking at this I'm going to go out on top. The WBC is great. And he'll just go through the motions, you just have this idea of, because I never made it to the big leagues. And, the only big leaguers I really deal with are when you're in spring training and you go up and down to catch some bullpens or, you do mop-up duty at the end of the game where you're still playing with your own minor league guys. But I feel like a lot of guys have an idea that major league guys don't work as well. They don't work as hard. They're just making their money, blah, blah, blah. And the longer you are, you realize that's not true. So when I first met you, I was like I wasn't taken back, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to observe, I don't want to have an opinion. I'm just going to observe. He's a professional. He's done it forever. And I remember thinking you had the excitement of like an 18-year-old kid and in the backfield playing on the sand line. And I'm like, he's played for so long. He's been up and down. I guarantee if you ask him if he's had everything he wanted in his career, he's going to tell you no. And he's out here literally 50 feet off the ground, fist pumping people on the way back from homers. Like I just remember the video of like you blocking a ball, your helmet was off, and like we were already up by, I don't even know, 6 or 7 runs. And you're like, I mean, just the intensity and the fun. I was like, I got to play. I have to play. I know that because I saw, it's weird seeing yourself in somebody that isn't you. Because normally you look at someone younger and you're like, oh, I see myself in this like 10-year-old. I was like, that was me. That was me when I had fun. That was me when I made varsity as a freshman. And I'm like, I'm playing until they rip their jersey off my back. So that was a huge, I mean, like I said, you had that one person. I guarantee I wasn't the only one you inspired, but that from 17, I played again until 20. So, I mean, I played another 3 years.
That's awesome. And the crazy part is the year before that was probably the worst year of my career, and that experience in the WBC reignited my love for the game. So I'm glad that you pointed that out because
keep coming back.
What did you say?
I said it's like golf. One good swing makes you come back. When you're playing baseball, it takes one moment and you're back in.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, but before I let you go, what I would love to ask you is if you could talk to yourself in 6th and 7th grade when you got cut from the team now, after you've had all the success that you've had, or if you can speak to another 6th or 7th grader, what would you tell them?
It's kind of cliche, but I'm a huge believer in you can control your destiny. You have the ability as a human being, as a loved one, as father, son, brother, whatever it may be, to control your effort level, control your drive. You obviously can't control the outcome, but I promise you, if you put in every ounce of effort that you have to where at the end of the day, regardless whether you make the team, whether you get cut, or whether you go on to play to be an MLB All-Star, at the end of the day, if you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I did everything that I possibly could have done to succeed, whatever happens is supposed to happen. If you look at yourself and say, you know, I could have done more, that's a conversation I to this day, even in my healthcare job or as a parent, as a husband, whatever it may be, I never want to look at myself and think I could have done more in a situation after the situation was over. So prepare yourself, understand that it's never the end. There's always going to be another door that opens, but prepare yourself the best to your ability to succeed in that specific endeavor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Nick Rickles, everyone, thank you so much. Listen to Nick. Give it your all. Keep that underdog mentality. Keep a chip on your shoulder. Play for the love of the game. Nick, you have a beautiful family. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and on social media. Thank you for sharing your life with us. We'll talk again soon, bud.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Finding the Way with Ryan Lavarnway. Find previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.